It is repetition which makes for perfection.
Man, I worked on this so long ago, I don't know. Like, I did some inverted inking. Like, that's not going to show up if this is all black. So I have to decide now. I have lines here because I knew that texture would show up in a scan and on the subsequent printout. But for an actual illustrated drawing, I have to decide now, is this all darkly hatched, very fine lines that approximates very dark gray black? Or do I just go all black and not have any of these lines? If I go all black here, then obviously that's going to disappear. So I have to decide what to do here. You know, this folds in the trunk would be black. This is a 0.5 marker, so you can see it's a little thicker. Not even following the pencils. You know, also the pencils are fairly tight on this. When I ink myself, I generally do not pencil anywhere near this tight. So it's kind of, and it's been such a while. I feel like maybe feels a little like I'm inking over someone that's not me, right? All right, so I'm just kind of getting some, really just practicing or exerting some of the muscles, warming up. That's what I'm trying to say. This is a 0.5, but those lines are very thin, which happens if the marker tip is not, I don't know if it's clogged or it's got white out caked on it. It's not flowing as freely as it should. That's what I'm trying to say. Because if it were, the lines would be thicker. But it's fine. I'm just pretending like it's a 0.3 instead of the 0.5 it is. And maybe after I use it a little bit, the lines will get a little thicker. So I'm just kind of inking lines here and there. See how those lines, they're breaking up in the center? You can kind of see the line because it's going over the gray, but if I erased it, the pencils underneath, those lines might disappear. So you see, you can make the lines appear if you alter the speed. With every marker, you can actually, even though it states one size, you can actually get a variety of line weights by altering pressure and speed. And what's the last one, guys? Anyone? Bueller. Angle. Angle's the third one. So it's pressure, speed of line, angle. That's how you get the most out of your markers. And by altering those three and getting very kind of practiced at those three or gaining some experience with that, you can use a thicker marker and actually have it create lines that are both kind of thick and then are almost like you would have if it was a calligraphy pen or brush. So I'm turning the form here, light, medium, gray, darker gray, and then maybe this will go to black. I don't know. Haven't made that decision. Free complimentary Twitch membership or subscription to this Prime, which is pretty cool if you think about it. It says, odd as unusual as that sounds, I'm just kind of navigating my way through this and trying to figure out what it was that I had in my head in terms of what this should look like. At some point, I think I'm just going to reach in and grab a brush and just start filling in some areas and seeing what happens. a safe, general safe area that can almost always go to black is the bat symbol in the chest. Right. And then I decide what's going on here. That said, I don't want the whole image to be kind of a crosshatch weave. I find that when it's a little too grayed out like that, it loses a lot of its punch. There's a lot of power that you can create by doing something that's dramatically just black and white. That's probably the most forceful expression of an image. Grays are for finesse and fine tuning and about subtleties, but they don't, they're like wordy sentences, right? If you think about just straight black and white illustration, no cross hatching, it is literally noun, verb, direct object, or adjective, whatever. But if you start cross hatching, you're adding like, asides, conjunctions, adding on to that sentence and making it longer, much like this dialogue. That said, it was probably like everyone that Mike Hem has ever. Any of you guys that follow that kind of music. There's a lot of lines in here that create energy and movement, which looks great, or looks better on a sort of package design graphics. But in terms of illustration, I'm dialing it back just a little bit. All right, sort of the difference between like street art, commercial art, or that approach, I guess, if that makes sense. So there's a lot more of that to be had. So with these, you can see there are lines that kind of connect these forms. A lot of times I'll make a blob here and a blob there and kind of connect it with a thinner line. And all that does is it just makes it feel more organic and connected, that it's not like a thick blob, brushed blob here, another one here, and then just a blank flat line connecting the two, but that it's almost like this shadow kind of creeps in this crack and at the top and bottom. It's just an approach, just looks a little different. Line weights are everything, when it comes to inking. And so many different effects you can create by just doing little things like that, right? Hopefully you can just having that thick kind of go to thin and back out to thick over here just creates a whole different vibe, at least to me. To a casual viewer, they probably don't notice it all, right? But if you are into inking or do this professionally, these are the kinds of things you notice, right? And if the sum total of these add up to something, but each individual line you just go like, that didn't change anything. Do I like this better, worse? No, it makes no difference. But I think the sum total does add up to some sort of perceptible vibe, feeling that the viewers kind of can appreciate, even if they can't articulate exactly why they like it. It'd be easy to do. I'm gonna have to revisit Goku for 2020. I feel like I have to draw the character at least once a year. Not like a hidden one, but just like a regular full-on drawing, just so I can outrage all the fans of Goku. They get shamed for how they're raising their kids or not raising them. The Disney, I just haven't seen it yet, but I feel like I know everything that happens already. Hence is the power of the internet. No, I don't. I don't know much other than there's Baby Yoda and people. See what I did there? That was just an inked line, and I basically put a tail on it and gradated it out, so it doesn't look like just a line that was just thrown in there. Having that kind of transition from dark to light just makes it feel less like a line and more of a shape. If that makes sense. Probably doesn't. It's very clear in my head. So I'm adding some new lines into it as well, as you can tell. Almost kind of fixing what I had done, or at least altering the approach that I had kind of created 2 years ago. This might be the most number of appearances ever. It's been a while since I've done like 4 consecutive weekends in a row. You'll get me on fumes. I'll be like, here's my signature. Just a straight line. No, everything will be fine. I am a trained professional, kids. Then I'm also appearing in Orange County at the end of this month and Vegas at Torpedo Comics Orange County and Torpedo Comics Las Vegas. I believe January 24th and the 25th. So technically those are my first appearances. And then the first convention is C2E2, which is Chicago. So I'm excited for that. Nothing planned, but I would like to get back to St. Louis. It's where I grew up, spent my formative years in high school. I think from like 4th grade on. I lived 4th grade till I graduated high school. And then kind of for half a year after I moved back, after I graduated from college. It'd be kind of fun to drive around, visit the old neighborhoods, and show my kids and wife kind of what kind of closed off suburban lifestyle led to this person that they know. Ay, ay, ay. So you can see I kind of went dark, light, and that's to disguise the fact that I'm just using one thickness in terms of a marker. Being able to modulate that line is something you would do with like a crow quill nib or a brush, and this is how we do it. It's like a poor man's brush or nib. It was actually really looked down upon for many, many years to use a marker to ink. Now a lot of it's digital, so I think it's strange for people to see people inking with pens anyway, but there are fewer and fewer people that use those old-fashioned tools. Sandra Hope inks with a brush, and she inks like a maniac with a brush. I'm sure we're buddies. We try to get together at least once or twice a year for dinner at various shows. New York Comic Con is usually where we meet up. But he's also on the road quite a bit. I think his business model or whatever, I mean, it's all about live appearances. You know, and then he takes like, well, this comic book lifestyle is not, it's not what it's cracked up to be. Meaning that there's a lot of work involved. You know, and especially as so much of it seems to have, some of the business has migrated to, well, it's always been in the convention space, but it seems like it's a bigger component, right? For a lot of current working full-time writers and pencilers and inkers, going to conventions, meeting the fans, selling merch, experiences, all that. So that's actually something I'm exploring this year. Someone asked me about what I'm excited for 2020. So I'm thinking about creating some experiences. You know, there's the VIP experiences. You get to come get your stuff signed, whatever. But maybe there's something else where people come in, just a small group of people, honestly. Because to do this right, I think you need the proper amount of time. And that's to kind of teach limited art classes. Something. I need to challenge myself. Keep these convention appearances meaningful, and that's, you know, and you do that by creating variety, being creative, pushing yourself. I switched now to a 0.2 marker. Spilled some ink. Ever since it's been legalized, some of the stuff is super strong. Kids might want to just, you know, dial it back just a little bit. Okay, boomer. All right. Now see, like I had these dark shadows underneath each finger, and then by taking this black shape and going all the way to the edge of that line, I've eliminated those shadows. It's unfortunate. See, sometimes these are the things that you lose when you go all black. You lose those line weights that you put some time into. So you can either add another white highlight around the big black highlight, or you could just ink it up to the line like I did. But you see how that kind of changes the drawing. So those are the kind of decisions I have to make. It's like every decision means once you go left, means you can't go right, and there are some advantages sometimes to going right. So I'm pretty sure this is not how most people create art, but in my head, I see it as a constant choice of like left, rights, like which way do I go? And every time I make a left and go more in that direction, it means it closes off potentials and outcomes that are only available or achievable by going to the right. Domino mask, that's what it is. This looks like it's all black. Okay. I think I should just go to black in here. Alright. Just for you guys, you'll see how this works here. Hope you guys all had a really good break. Did a lot of communing with nature. Kind of see I'm tentatively putting in these shadows here. It's like trying to get to a dry brush so I can dry brush that area. I can always go to black later. So let's try to wear out the brush a little bit, get the ink out as much as we can. Almost there. How do you know? I just know after a while. Okay. See how that works there? And the value of that, and even though maybe it didn't work out for where you were employed, and I have no idea what you were doing, but there's so many opportunities out there. You will find a place. You will land on your feet. Yeah. It's always darkest before the storm kind of thing, right? Or darkest before the sunrise. Let's see what happens if I do this. I actually got a cameo from High Pitch Eric over the winter for that. I'll try to commit to several more dates, so that so you guys have a little bit of advance notice. April would probably be the worst for streaming, but good for live meeting. Yeah, I'll be here next Sunday. Since that's all black. I can always get rid of these sort of holding lines on the outside and just have it completely melt into the shadows. But it's good to leave a little gray, white, kind of hint at the holding line of the leg itself. Right, you're seeing it come together here, hopefully. So I think the goal in 2020 is probably, as far as streaming goes, more streams, but shorter intervals. Right? We all have lives. And if I can pop in, do 90 minutes cover. But I do have some assignments, like a Joker's 80th anniversary cover. I might do those all on stream or not. It depends. I draw faster when I'm live streaming because I gotta fill the dead air. But I don't know if the quality of the work is as, I shouldn't even say this, but as if I just kind of draw it in my spare time without it being on stream. It goes slower, being more deliberate, but I'm also procrastinating more because you don't have that, you don't have an audience that's watching you. So pick your poison. Or like this Flash 750 cover I did. I think I did a little bit every day over like 5 days to get that done, which is very atypical for me. I usually like to sit down and get a piece done in one sitting. Precisely because of kind of what I've explained today, is like there's a lot you hold in your head as you're drawing, kind of like the left, right, left, right, left, 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 whatever, all the creative decisions you're going to make in a piece. You are kind of deciding and holding in your head whether you think you are or not, I think. And so as you're drawing, you're kind of moving towards that North Star, that image that you see in your head. When you put the artwork aside for a long period of time, you kind of lose that kind of finished state image in your head. So when you come back to it, you have to re-figure out exactly what you want this thing to be at the end of the day, and it could be a challenge. I pick it up off the board so I don't get ink on the tabletop behind me, make it all smudged. I want to transition this quicker to black. On camera than it does in front of me. A lot more this year. You know, I kind of took a big break from it at the end of last year. It was really, am I promoting something? Am I teaching something? You know, am I sharing something that I feel is important to share? Okay, maybe I won't. I'm sure it'll change. Social media is addicting, right? It's designed to be get that look. And I don't want to shortchange my day job by always showing up at work like half alert or a third alert or whatever alert it would bring me down to. It's the worst thing you can do to yourself, I think. More so than smoking, drinking, any of that other stuff. It's crazy. Letting a little serendipity help me out. Just kind of random brush stroke shapes down here. Trying to go with the initial instinct of having kind of black shapes down here. So many different ways you can do it. You could do it using a brush and just creating random blobby shapes. I could trap it with a marker and then fill it in. Could have cross-hatched it, could have ignored it. I went with it. Let's see how that looks. Alright, it's a continuation of the shadow of the foot coming down. Just overwrote some work I did with the line, with the marker right there. Kind of wild brush strokes, but and this is where if you take a little marker and not get rid of all the rough edges, but maybe minimize some of them and make it look intentionally random is what I'm looking for. So invest a little time into that. Great guy, super nice guy, super talented, humble, and he's just blown up. It's amazing to see, and it's all because of his creativity. It's not, you know, it's a feel-good breakout story. This is a 0.1. A 0.1 will allow me to kind of finesse it. So first I'm going to put a kind of very thin gray layer on all of it here. And then by cross-hatching, I can create a different gray. Bring it. Take it to almost to a true black. Gray. This is the cast shadow. You can see all the noodling I'm doing here. Going back and forth, creating different shades of gray. Could have made all that just black. What I've got there. Have those ready at the Vegas Torpedo Comics. I saw prototypes or the mock-ups. They look great. Very happy. If you've been following the stream for past 2 years, it's got and how much of it was really kind of inspired by you guys, your input, your feedback, your votes, and you'll see a lot of that kind of community reflected in the sketchbook itself. It should bring back a lot of very sort of pleasant memories. So I experienced a lot of hand pain when I first started drawing as well. You just have to work through it. You get a lot of pain in your knuckles right here, and then I pinched a nerve in my shoulder. You just have to be able to draw more than 2 to 4 hours. You're just going to have to work through it and yeah, that's all I can say, man. It's hard. here's where I'm kind of veering left. Going right would just be to throw in like one big black shadow. Going left is about kind of doing a finesse where you can kind of see a little of the muscle structure through the density of the lines. Right, and I'm just sort of building up values by cross-hatching. But mindful of where I want to keep it light and where I want to go darker, right? So darker towards down here where the shadows are, lighter as it kind of breaks up on the form. This is a 0.1, so it's very thin. If you go too fast, the line, you'll see ink at the top and at the end, but not in the middle. So, but if you know that, you can make it your friend. So again, at different angles, you get different ink strokes. Right, so it's not just about creating the lights and the darks now, it's about having the right balance, right? Things can't look super rendered in some areas and then not rendered at all, so kind of just have to keep futzing with it, playing around with the values, pushing things back. Anything, if you've overcompensated and made things too dark, you have to kind of remember in your head, okay, I'll go back in with white out and pull that back out. All right, kind of want to go to almost as dark of a black as I can go to in this area here. Like, we have very similar influences, like Neil Adams, John Byrne. I think mostly Neil Adams for him. And I'm sure he's picked up a lot just inking me over the years. And when I ink, I mean, obviously I ink kind of to my style, but I can't, but I also think like, oh, I know how Scott would have handled a particular line. So I think even if we're not working together, we do influence each other, if that makes sense. Down here you'll see that there's rendering, so again, as I render more here, I have to balance it with the rendering over here. And I start with like the biggest, thickest lines first. That's kind of like the base. So sometimes the cross-hatching creates value, a gray, but sometimes the lines create form by direction. And sometimes it creates texture, right? So you have all these different things lines can do. So again, in your head, you have to figure out what is it that I'm trying to achieve with these lines. And then is the pattern I'm creating texture, value, form, or a combination of the three, because you can easily do it. You can do it where it's accomplishing both. Like these lines here help create the form, the shape of the thigh, and also create a value, like a darker gray on the edge, again, helping create the form. And then like a line like that, or here, that creates texture, right? Makes it look less like it's a painted on costume, and you can see little folds or nicks, in the costume itself. Tears, scratches, what have you. I'll tell you that if you're new to this, it sounds. I'm probably I'm making it sound needlessly, overly complex. A lot of the stuff you'll just discover as you do more and more of it, and you'll understand kind of like what I'm talking about. So it's not critical that you understand exactly where I'm coming from, but just that, as in all things, there are greater levels of understanding of anything that is done. And as you embark upon something new, you may feel like you're basically playing on all levels, but you're really not. But if you do it enough, you'll start understanding that there are all these different levels, and that's kind of the fun of all of this, is that there's always the next level, and it's like, whoa, I didn't even discover this. And to me, like, paint or color is like the next level on top of this, and it requires whole new ways of thinking about drawing and form and line or lack of line. So I'd like to do more of that this year. See how it goes. I would say this is 80% done, maybe 75. What has to happen is, the scary part is erasing the pencils and seeing what you have. Although I kind of want to, I'll probably selectively erase. And by that, I mean I'm not going to erase in these areas here. I like the density of it all. I'll definitely erase these kinds of lines, which don't belong. But anything that's in the gray, I'll keep the pencil underneath, because it does contribute to the value that I've created. And a lot of times when you erase the pencils, it knocks the value back up a shade or two lighter, and then that means you have to go back in and make it darker. You can avoid that by just not erasing in those areas. So it would be all about like erasing here, right? But not, and maybe right there, but not get into the other parts, and letting the pencils kind of help make that gray